please do that. And boy, we got a great show today. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've got two producers whom I will introduce shortly. And I had the most wonderful conversation with them yesterday in the pre-show. In fact, I told both of them I wished we would have recorded that. We could have just voiced over the show today, because it was just, man, it was a lot of fun, very invigorating. And there's so many truths in this industry that people who have been into it for a long time and have been very accomplished, they just know, and we were comparing notes, and it's like we had been working together for 20 years, and that was so fun. That was so fun. So I'm very excited about this show. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's really strange now. We are back into it. I know I have had a lot of jobs this week, a lot of jobs last week. And then Brad and I were, both comparing notes and calendars. And, I am totally booked that first week of December.
Oh, yeah?
And I cannot find anybody. Everybody is working.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so,
great.
And they obviously booked early because we're 2 weeks out from that right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a good problem to have. All right, here we go.
It is. All right, let's do it. Hey, everybody. Join me in welcoming Lawrence T. Lewis and Kendrick. Kristen, I have never gotten a name right in the entire 4 years I've been doing the show.
That's great, because it's actually Christian.
Christian. Thank you, Christian.
That's why I go by Sister Christian, because there's no mistake.
Sister Christian.
Exactly.
And by the way, I love that. I wasn't sure if it was a sect thing or something like that, but no, I love Sister Christian. I'm going to call you Sister. And of course, Lawrence, you're Lawrence, and Kristen or Sister and Lawrence are producers. And Sister lives in New York. Lawrence is out here in LA, and they swap back and forth. And they've been producers, and I don't want to date you. I would give it 20 years because I always say 20 years to everything. But you're in that time range. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yes, okay, 20 plus. little plus. Let's be vague.
Yeah. All right, very good, very good. But, I had such a great time talking to you guys in the pre-show yesterday, the pre-interview. And, I mean, I felt like we just hit it off, and then we just ran with it. And so I'd like to repeat all that today with the show, and I'm not worried at all about what you want to talk about or what we see and show. But first of all, I would like to have you both give us a little, your bio, just like you're interviewing for a job here. So, Sister, let's go with you first, and tell us about yourself.
Okay, I've been doing it for 20-something years now, and I started as an office receptionist at a production company, and then begged to start production assisting. Everybody was in, and then I worked my way up to producing. I've been doing it for a long time, film, content, anything you can think. I've been doing it. So music videos, the whole gambit. And I work both coasts. So it's a good time.
That's great. Lawrence?
Yeah, same. I mean, I grew up a little kid. I found my parents' Super 8 camera and was in love with Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and thought I was going to be the next Tom Savini or Rick Baker and be a special effects makeup artist. And wow. then I thought I was going to be a sitcom star. So I did little films, and then I saw the camera and I saw the lights, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And that's when I kind of fell in love with putting it all together, and got into feature films, and got bored of being at studios, and got into commercials, faster pace, more money, more
money.
hands-on, and it was exciting back then, way back then. And yeah, so here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. That's great. So, we've talked. Tell me the types of projects that you each do. And I know you've hit on it a little bit right there. But what is a preference for you? Do you go after more of the corporate style? Do you prefer a music video? What is your preference? First to you, sister.
So I like a good solid job that pays my rate. So at this point,
number one.
I do like a lot. I like intricate jobs. I like jobs that have a lot of effects in post, but also in-camera effects. Mm-hmm. And I actually choose jobs based on the people that I would be working with versus what the actual content is. So if I base jobs on only large budgets, I might have to work with somebody I don't like. So mm-hmm. I prefer to work with people I like. So it doesn't really matter the project as long as there's enough.
Yeah. And Lawrence, how about you?
It's about the same for me. I mean, we don't really get to cherry pick our jobs. You kind of find a connection with either a director or a company that you enjoy working at. Like I was never successful. I was never really successful in the big, initial companies, right? HSI, those kind of things. I really connected with these smaller boutique companies where I knew really well the owners of the company, the controllers, and that's where I started to kind of blossom. And I think you just have a connection with a director. You understand their style. You understand how to support them. And it's whatever jobs they get that you kind of end up working on.
Mm-hmm. But, and if I may just follow up on that as well, those companies will take your feedback immediately when it comes to how the job is going at their client, how their director is, versus when you work at a large company, it's all about the bottom line.
And if they pay the same rate, then what does it matter?
What does it matter?
That's good. Well, this is so much, and because this is just what you're saying, it's a relationship business, right? Yeah. I mean, it's who you develop those long-term relationships with. And as that person, too, their career blossoms or they move to different entities, you're probably coming along with them or you have that connection there, and so that's such a great way to expand your work as well. Lawrence, you came out of, you said you got into the studios first, but you were tired of being at a studio so much. Tell me a little bit about that experience, and because that's got to be pretty heady, when you're coming in and all of a sudden you're at a Warner Brothers or a Universal and you're working that and you're thinking, oh my God, I've made it. You know what I mean? I've done it. And then there's a certain reality that sets in, right? Tell me about that.
Exactly. You start, now granted, this was back when I was still just a production coordinator. I got up to production supervisor, which is kind of a non-union UPM type of thing.
It's made up.
And it's a made up.
Sorry.
It is true. It's true. And then
there's a lot of made up things here, sister.
There's a lot of made up things, and a lot of.
I had to make the decision of like, do I want to become union? Do I want to go through this route? And also, I found myself in an office pushing papers for most of the you could go to set, the actors, you meet them all, you call them on the phone, right?
Right.
But that just was not as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be, and my skills put me on this producer route, right? So I wasn't like the director or the special effects makeup artist I thought I was going to be, which is fine. You follow what you're good at, and I thought, okay, I'm a cog in a wheel. So if that's all I am, how can I make the most money out of this? And how can I have the most excitement and feel like I'm actually doing something? And that was commercials. And I quickly, from coordinator, shot up to being a producer. And then you're hands-on everything. Every decision falls into your lap. And that was much more fulfilling, much more exciting. And of course, this is back in the 90s when we had all kinds of money to work with and all kinds of locations to be in. And it fit me more than what I thought Hollywood was going to fit me.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because this is something that I was really involved in a couple conversations with this last week. Was this business at all like you imagined it? before you got into it? Sister?
Wow. That's a very interesting question because before production, my first husband was in the military. So I traveled around a lot. And as a military wife, you would go from base to base and get sometimes a couple, 3 jobs because, like you just to make ends happen. And when I found production, I was like, wait a second. Wait a minute. You get hired because you're good. And you're only as good as you are if you work hard, and you get rewarded with that with a wage that is just the equivalent of working 1 job. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up in the South, so different. And I didn't have much exposure to this. So when I found this job, it was, I still wake up every day after this, doing it this long, happy that I get to go to do this for a living. And I know people who aren't happy with their jobs, but we choose this. We're freelance. We choose what we do for a living. And so I have to say, I never even knew it existed, but I think it's what you make it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Lawrence, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. It is, I think the most rewarding moment on these jobs is, driving home if you're an overnight shoot, you just completed a 5, 6, 7 day shoot, and you're driving home at dawn as everyone's driving to work. That's the most thrilling thing, to think that you just accomplished this monumentous task where you had your hand in every aspect of it. It's quite exhilarating. And then when you get to a point in your career when you can kind of pick and choose your jobs, pick and choose the people you want to work with, like Christian said, we can choose not to work with assholes. And kind of create the life that you want to have. We're very fortunate and we're very privileged to be able to do what we do.
Yes. No, absolutely.
And we set our rates. We let everybody know how much we think we're worth, which I think is important as well.
Nobody else gets to do that, do they? They wait to see what somebody's going to pay them. I know that it's magic. I'll go back to when, and I only say this for Tony's sake right now, I started as a 40-year-old $50 a day PA.
I was
holy shit.
64. I was $64 a day.
You were 64. Well, you were.
Why is New York? They paid us more.
You had gone to college, obviously.
Right, of course.
Yeah, you got the extra bump.
May I ask you a question, Tony? Did you find that whatever you had done before production, like before this, prepared you for this? Or made you grateful that this was out there?
I don't remember doing anything before this. To be
okay.
Yeah.
I've been doing this as long as everybody here, so.
Yeah. In all honesty, when I got into this, for me, I had been an employee all of my life, all those up to 40 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I remember thinking, I had no idea. I really had no preconceived ideas about what it was like, but it was so different than anything I would have imagined. I remember I had a sound friend that I had, been in the business 6 months or so, and he went to Rod Stewart's house that day to do an interview with him. Nice. And he was bitching about it. You know what I mean? He was bitching.
This was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, it was a long time ago. He was bitching about the lunch and everything like that, and of course I was not even used to anybody buying me lunch. You know what I mean? That was an amazing thing.
That was, yeah.
And he told me, he goes, yeah, and they only paid $800. I like, you made $800 in a day? Are you kidding me? And from there on, it wasn't just that, obviously, but I realized where the magic was then. This is really, you get to go places, see people, do things, be in charge of things you'd never thought you would be in charge of, and get paid really good for it. And that's, and I think I say this with some very good safety. We are ruined. We could never go back and do anything.
I know. Own your own business.
That's That is the downfall of this business. You get a little spoiled.
It's kind of like being a vampire. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're never going back to the real world. Yeah.
Exactly. Just like it.
Yeah. So listen, I know we got some pieces, and I always do this, talk way too much in the beginning, and then we have to rush to put them. So I know we have some pieces, and Tony, I don't know what you've got queued up, or if you've got queued up anything, but shall we just have them maybe take us and show us some of their stuff, and let's talk about that.
Well, I kind of pick stuff out, so and I know.
Okay, good. Well, you're the man.
If I can pull
then
down
you're
that,
in charge.
You're
in charge.
I'll see if I can pull down that pistachio commercial before the end of the show.
Oh yeah, sorry,
really
last minute there.
But, we can start with one of Christiane's spots. I like this boxed spot, which I thought was kind of cool. Very simple concept, but I thought you pulled it off very well. So,
thank you very much.
Let's take a look at this one first.
This Saturday morning, Megan is doing yoga. Last Saturday morning, Megan was doing something else. Bulk from Boxed didn't only save Megan $33. Bulk from Boxed saved Megan Saturday. Bulk size shopping for less. Easy. Boxed. Bulk made beautiful.
Great spot.
Oh, that's great. That's great, sister. I love that.
It was great. That was the Dr. Twins, who are fabulous directors. If any, they're great. That one was great. Lawrence, we actually filmed that at a place called Cinema World in New York, which I'm sure
yeah.
It's a famous stage here that is still, it's like lawless there, the last banyan of non-union stages. And it was great. I mean, we had to build that grocery store aisle, and it was an art department monument nightmare, but also it all was pulled off without overtime, but that was one day shoot.
In one day shoot.
One day shoot. Yeah.
Wow. No overdue. So tell me about this. Let's get into this, because I think this is a good one. You're the producer. You've got your client. They've given you a budget.
And the first time I worked with the director and the DP too.
Okay. So again, you're really thrown into the lion's cage there.
A little, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got a couple wild cards, but you've done it for years. So I mean, not your first rodeo, right? Yeah. Yep. So let me just break this down a little bit. You're going in there. You're in the stage. You've got art department. Art department, obviously, they've got to pull off a lot. And I know it's just everything right outside of that frame. Yes. There's nothing there. I got that. You used every bit of space for the frame, I'm sure. But how do you go about, let's just take, for example, your art department, because that is very art department heavy, those two scenes in one studio, and you're doing it in 10 hours. How do you handle that budget? How do you budget for that? What is your magic on that? I know do you depend on the estimate from the art department? How do you do that?
Well, so the budget was handed. So I was not in on the bidding process. So half the time we do jobs, Lawrence and I, we either are in on the bidding process, and we bid it the way that we think the job should happen, based on the creative that we're giving at that point. And then hopefully we produce it. But if we don't, then another producer should be able to pick it up, right at that point. Or we're just handed the budget and say, make it work. So the first thing I do is I go through it and I see where the mistakes were made by the person bidding it.
Right.
I move the money around. And then on that, it was an art department heavy job, which was underbid. So you have to pull from other areas. And that just means compromise. Like they wanted a ceiling. I was like, no, we can't have a ceiling. We can't.
Can't afford it.
Can't have a ceiling. So we just had to frame it that way, speak to the DP, all that kind of stuff. So it actually has to be teamwork. You have to have the DP and the production designer, and honestly, wardrobe and hair and makeup, everybody in the AD department together to understand where the money is needed. So that the departments who may not need it as much, say camera, can dial back. Maybe they just get 2 lenses versus the full package. There's ways that everyone can be mostly happy.
Right. Right.
Mostly happy.
You pulled it off, you leveled it out, and you got all the shots. And no one would know there were any compromises in that too. Just looking at that, there's no any compromise at all. I wouldn't say it's It's very good creative. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say there is one trick that we did use. There was the machine that shot the coupons out during the middle of it. That was one of those make it rain guns that you see in strip clubs, because there was because we couldn't have the rig made, so there was somebody off the side doing that because we had to be cheap.
There you go. Well, it worked. It
girl.
worked totally well. Totally well.
Exactly.
All right, Lawrence, what have you got for us?
I don't know, Tony. What do you got for us?
Tony,
I don't know.
Tony, you're the
What do we got,
man.
Tony?
I went out of order.
This is a promo spot for a TV show, I think, for having to do with knives and swords, but I couldn't quite pick up. I breezed through it so fast. You probably know what show this was for. So let's take a look here.
Cut, chop, slice. The language of a blade is as varied as the brush strokes of an artist. And to speak its language fluently, a weapon must be perfectly sharpened and honed. Now, competitors from around the world will raise these historic weapons once more to battle it out on the ultimate obstacle course. Instant Fire, Knife or Death. All new, tonight at 10 on History.
Yeah, that was a great spot.
That was great. Absolutely.
I think I was impressed more by the sound design on that spot than anything else. So that was wonderful.
Well, that was the one thing I didn't have anything to do with. So, no, that's by a director. Christian works with this director a lot out of New York, Carlo Vandero, and he has designed. Tony, we were talking about this the other day. He has designed a few very unique lighting, visual effects. It's proprietary lighting software where they time different lighting effects to frame rate in cameras. So if you look at that, that's all obviously, us in the industry know that was shot on a Phantom, which is an ultra high speed camera. But if you look, it's moving light. It's light moving at normal time, even though you're shooting at very high frame rate. So he created this system with these strobing lights to go faster than the frame rate. So even when you're at a very, very high frame rate, you've got this kind of like real-time moving light within that frame. And that was featured in the feature film Thor Ragnarok, in the sequence where the Valkyries are coming down on horseback, and there's that slow-moving light around them while they're in ultra slow motion. So this director is a bit of a genius in the things that he creates and has designed. That was one of the spots.
Well, you know what? You answered the question I was going to ask next, actually, because, of course, being a lighting guy myself, I know that's high speed, and you need a lot of light. And to get that lighting movement, I don't know that I've ever seen that, to tell you the truth, very impressive, very good. And that was a bumper for a show, right?
Yes, an A&E show, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And
I love doing promos, by the way. May I say why? May I cut in and say that?
Please.
Working. So when you work with a network to do a promo for one of their shows, the agency is cut out. It's almost like working client direct.
It's a very different experience.
Very different. So the creative, as a producer, I do like to. I know this is true with Lawrence. I do like to work on projects where the director wants input creatively from their producer. That isn't always the case, believe me.
Yes, right.
And so I want to be able to help or help them think of a creative way to make it happen for the money. And so promos actually cut out the agency creative voice, so you get more direct availability for your ideas to actually make it into the spot.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. And I could see how that would be a big thing, going direct. And how much of that work do you each do? Is this, do you have, obviously, Lawrence, that was yours. And how much contact do you have in the networks like that, the cable networks?
I don't do that many promos. It just kind of depends on who our contacts are directors and production companies. So it really depends on the production company, who their clients are. We get thrown onto those jobs. I think I've maybe done all of 10 promos in my entire career. I don't think I've done much more than that, but they are a very different ball game and much funner than commercials.
Oh yeah, so much more fun.
A lot less fear involved from from an
Or a
ad.
lot less marketing research done to see what word we should use in a steakhouse commercial because people don't like asparagus. Believe me. I was in a 45-minute conversation once with that, by the way, for Longhorn Steakhouse. But yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
well, that's what advertising is driven a lot by. Is the client has done market research for exactly what people are going to want to eat or buy or wear or whatever it is. And then the commercial is basically tailored to that. So you have very specific things that you do. Whereas a promo has a lot more creative input because there's not the creative department at an agency telling the network what to do.
Yeah. We had a director, Jordan Brady, on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about when you step in and you go into those meetings with the agencies and stuff, there has been so much water down the river before you ever step into that door that you have to be very cautious on where you're, what you're presenting, what you're doing, how you're presenting information, because you could go a left turn and it's the real wrong left turn that you can go into, and he was talking about that very thing.
It's always interesting because we're taking all this information and translating it to location scouts and casting people, and as good craftspeople do, which everyone we work with is a good craftsperson, they want to bring their own ideas and say, what if we do this? What if we do this? And sometimes you just have to be like, that idea sailed like 6 months ago. So I love your input. I love your creative idea, but just look for what we asked for. Because by the time they get to us and a director, they've been working this, they've been workshopping these ideas, these creatives for a year. So by the time it gets to us, it's a little bit too late to kind of reinvent the wheel, but you gotta open it up to people's creative input.
Yeah. No, I like that. That is very, very true. So
to expound on that, and I apologize to keep interrupting, Burnie, but when you see those conversations at Video Village that are somewhat heated, or why do they want it done like this, or what's going on, it's because those people have been doing this for 6 months. Right. Yeah. I know. Just saying it.
No, and that's it. And too, another thing is legal. That's so much of what people don't ever hear and never makes sense to us. I always think, who's going to sue over something like that? Are you kidding?
Oh, have you not worked with Nickelodeon before?
Oh, sure, very sensitive.
I work with Nickelodeon a lot, but their legal is huge, and it changes before. As you hear a buzz in society of what, how things are changing, Nickelodeon's already on it because of what they're showing children. They take their responsibility of what their viewership, is. Right. And so, but the legal is just, it can choke you sometimes.
Yeah. No, I'm always surprised what gets passed. You know what I mean? Really, that is really the creative thing, is there's such funny stuff out there and such good stuff, that it gets. Have you ever worked, and here's out of left field, but have you ever worked commercials for foreign countries?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's actually how I started my career. I did a lot of commercials for Japanese service production companies that operated here in LA for Japanese clients and other countries. And I think the most confusing, complicated one that I did was, and I have to kind of think about it, we shot in Hawaii. It was a Japanese production service company for Chinese clients with an Italian ad agency.
Oh my God.
It was one of the most dysfunctional jobs I was ever involved in. It's just because there was so much cultural differences between everybody. And not that anything was bad or harmful, But
Right.
it was just a challenge. Everybody worked so differently that it was just hard to get that flow going. And so those jobs do happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also, Lawrence, I'm sure you know too, like when you work in a foreign country, each country, just like in a little bit in the US too, when you work in different states, but each country has a different way of doing production as well. So I'm sure blending all of those together in Hawaii
That had
is
to be
a ton
crazy.
of fun. Exactly.
Yeah, that had to be crazy. Yeah, I too have worked with Asian and a couple other nationalities, and it's always the it's funny in lighting because there's a lot of pantomime. You know what I mean? You're pointing to the light and you're pointing where it's going to go and like this. And I find that's easier. I don't know what it would be like if you had to, really sort of translate an intellectual idea, about the action of that. I think that'd be very difficult.
Yeah,
Tony,
is.
do we have something in the queue?
Oh, we have a lot of things in the queue. I actually have a question, for many who may not be.
I'm sorry, Tony. There's no time.
Oh, okay, fine. All right. Show's over. Gotta go by.
No, please.
Robots.
No, for people who may be watching that, that may not be familiar with, the different levels of departments. We did have Jordan Brady on, and he as a director will come into a project usually very far into the process where he's literally just putting out the vision that's being handed to him with some some of his own tweaks and stuff. But as producers, where do you usually come into the process?
Christian?
Lawrence.
No fighting.
Thanks, everyone.
Go fight.
Gotta
Well,
It varies between jobs. Like Christian said, sometimes we're brought in early on to help bid the project.
which is great.
You're kind of in on it, you're bidding it, you're setting yourself up with your own budget. Hopefully it stays that way. And then there are other times where you're called and just like something I'm on now, it's like, get a scout out tomorrow, start casting tomorrow. So it kind of really depends on the job. Now, by the time we get involved, if we're not bidding the project, then the director's already probably been on it for maybe 2 weeks. Doing a treatment and having calls to pitch and that kind of thing, and then we're on. Sometimes we're on at as soon as the job comes in the door because they don't have anyone to bid it. So it depends. I hope that answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I've got one for you because this has been throughout my career. I get a call at 5:30 on Friday night for a shoot at 6 a.m. on Monday morning.
Right.
Who do I sue for that? Yeah. I mean, it always occurs to me, I go, wait a minute.
The DP that you work with took it. So.
Well, so many times, though, production will be calling me for something like that. And it's just like, I go, what? How did this all come about in this last moment that now it's the thing that has to happen right now? Can you give me any insights into that? Because I'm assuming there's things just like you said, Lawrence, somebody says, okay, you're scouting tomorrow, you're casting tomorrow.
Yeah.
How does that happen? What are the circumstances in an occasion like that?
I mean,
if you can answer it,
I usually find that those jobs are clients. They're panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's either because they're trying to use up the last of their money, or because it was mismanaged in the agency. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But by the time you get one of those last minute jobs, which happened more frequently than not, it's usually because somebody had an idea that was high up enough to okay it to get through really quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah.
it's usually a panic situation. Would you agree, Lawrence?
Yeah. Other situations are I seem to notice those a lot at the end of the year. And that's when agencies are trying to spend their budget for the year so they don't get a smaller budget next year. Other times that happens is because the award came very late, right? So you're bidding on a job, and at some point they have to officially, in writing, award the job to the production company. And sometimes that just takes a lot longer than anyone expects. And so
Right.
nobody wants to pull any triggers until they physically get that award. So sometimes that's the case. And then sometimes everything changed. Like they might have already had a different gaffer, different lighting company, a different plan. Maybe they were shooting in Austin. And then all of a sudden they were like, nope, move it to LA, call Burnie, and
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
So it's a myriad of things. Typically, I don't know. For me, Christian, it's really never the actual director or producer. It's usually something higher up involved in like the ad agency or the client or a celebrity talent availability. That's always a big one. Always last minute with celebrities because you never know what they're or athletes, celebrity athletes. It's always you're just
scheduled.
I sat in Charlotte, North Carolina for 10 days waiting for a NASCAR driver to be available for our shoot, and we had to throw it. Yeah, you had to throw it together at the last minute, and that's just kind of. Again, that was back when we had all the money in the world, but
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I apologize then. I've always blamed you guys, so I'll back off that.
Well, I mean, that's interesting because I rarely take those jobs anymore too.
I was gonna say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've gotten
because
calls
they're so hard to do.
I've gotten calls on a Thursday night or Friday night saying, we need this location on a scout on Monday morning, or, we need to we're shooting next Tuesday. Do you, and I was like, no, I'm no, thank you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There's somebody else
also,
that'll do that. Yeah.
There's somebody younger.
There's somebody younger. And also, for those kind of last minute jobs, what you're going to make, sorry to make this about money, but it's true. You're going to make 5 of your day rate, 5 days of day rate to do the exact same job that normally takes you 10 or 12 days.
It's exactly. So you're doing 12 days of work within a 5-day period and only getting paid for 5 days.
Right.
It's just those are absolutely great learning tools for producers who are green for sure. They're holding your feet to the fire.
Throw them in.
But they're
Yeah.
And I think. Sorry, Burnie. I think that was one thing that I kind of wanted to also say is that, line producers. We're line producers, right? We're freelance. We're not tied to a company. We're hired. We're hired guns, just like the gaffer is, just like the fourth grip is, just like anybody on the crew is. So we're thrown into the mix, and we're just trying to figure it out, and we're just trying to see what's possible. So we ask all these crazy questions. Can we do this? Can we do this? Can you do this by tomorrow? It's because that's our job, and we're just trying to execute to the best of our abilities, just in the same way you and your crew would be. Right.
No, I totally get it. Yeah. But go ahead, sister.
I think that it's an important point to make as well, because there's not an incentive for us to be under budget. There's not an incentive, or I have to say, for the majority of us, I'm not sure what else goes on out there, but I just make my day rate to do the job. And my reward is, if I do a good job, I'm hired again.
Right. And sometimes that means being under budget.
Yeah.
It does mean being under budget. I don't mean that, but I don't get a percentage of the underage.
Right.
I don't get a bonus because I'm under budget. I get the days that I worked, and I get to possibly be hired again. If the job went well. So I take that into consideration a lot when I do my job, because you're only as good as the last job you did.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Reputation, everything.
And there's always that inverse relationship. The less money you make, the harder you get your ass kicked.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that never fails. That never fails. It's always that. I want to see a couple more things, but then I've got a couple questions to come back to you, and that is, why does the producer always get the blame? So you can get your answers ready on that one. And but Tony, what have we got?
You know what? I'm going to go back to Christian, and with her Zola spots. I think she had a series of spots for Zola I think were fantastic. So I'm going to show a couple in a row here.
I have some great day of shooting stories for that one.
I can't wait to hear this. So, all right, here we go.
Hi, Ava. Wonder if our guests would be here on time.
If we had a custom wedding website.
With our ceremony details on it.
And I, Taylor, would pick Zola to have and to host our wedding website.
Ours even matched our Zola invites. The whole thing was so freaking easy.
Do you think Zola could have made planning your perfect wedding easier?
We do. I do.
We've helped 1 million couples plan their weddings with free websites, registry, and invitations.
I, Marie, wish someone had told us that there are hundreds of affordable invitations
and save the dates
and thank yous on Zola.com.
These scream #Alex gets married.
Shop custom save the dates, invitations, and thank you cards only at Zola.com.
I, Eleanor, regret registering at the same store my parents did 30 years ago.
So regret that.
Yeah.
Free websites, registry, and invitations. Get started for free at Zola.com.
Oh, bravo.
Wow.
I tell you, that very.
They were
those
fantastic
awesome.
and very controversial too.
They
I
were.
have to say.
Yeah, well.
They were.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd like to say is all 3 of those were filmed in one day.
Wow.
Wow.
I know. So everyone take a moment, soak that in. October, it was like the day before, was it Halloween actually? It was Halloween last year is when they were filmed. And they were filmed in New York, which was also a what are we doing because it's fall in New York and to film outdoor weddings. It rained that day all day long except for the moments of the last one that was shown was the first one we filmed that day. And it was literally we had an hour of non-rain during that day. So this was the job where we were on an area of Staten Island that a venue that had multiple looks, so we were good there. On the Scout, my grip and gaffer, those are the guys I trust implicitly in New York, and they came to me and they said, "Listen, we're going to need this, this, and this." And I was like, okay, so what about, can we do this? I suggested a balloon light. They freaked out. They're like, this is the first time anyone's ever suggested this from a producer. But all of this, we wound up with 16 grip and electrics on that job. And we had to. And wow. I was getting, and I had to, I think that what we hire a professional in every key department, right? And if you don't trust those keys to tell you what you need to get it done, then your job is not going to get done. We wound up, that was a 16 and a half hour day. It was a planned 14, and then with a series of unfortunate events, including rain, it made it go longer. But everybody there had every single thing that they needed to make the job go right.
Wow.
That was, but that was also a discussion with my boss at the production company, who needed to understand that this meant that we were going to be slightly under or slightly over, or possibly if one more thing happened, it would break the bank. I just didn't know, but he had to trust me in order to do that, and I had to have a team of people under me that I trusted as well. It was a very interesting, very long day, but we pulled it off. It turned out great. I love that.
Wow.
job.
No,
Yeah.
I tell you that was some very good stuff. And obviously, I'd just say one thing up front: you weren't afraid of the controversy. I'm sure people there, whenever you do something that is a little challenging, you're going to get that. But I'm proud to say you did.
The reason why it was controversial, and I think that the moment it came out, the Hallmark Channel said that they were not going to air it because of 2 women kissing on camera. And within a day, Twitter took over and boycotted the channel. And within a day, they came on and apologized, started showing the commercial on their channel, and got in 2 scripts that featured 2 moms and as the leads. And I think that doing these types of things can actually change your culture.
Yeah. Well, that's immediate.
It made national news. I'm watching the news and they're talking about this commercial. And it's
I know.
like, Christian. I'm like, wait, this is your commercial.
That's why I know.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's got to feel good. That's got to feel good to know that you made a direct impact, It
does. And it was about something very important, too. I just, it almost made the 16.5-hour day worth it. I didn't answer my phone for 2 days.
Still qualifying that a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, those jobs were easy 10, 15 years ago.
Oh yeah. They're real rough
now.
No, you're 2 days off after that. There's no doubt about it. But that's amazing because that was just a year ago. Just a year ago.
Yeah.
That is, I'm kind of surprised by it.
I think we had 18 extras. They all changed clothes during each one, and they were all in all the weddings. I mean, we condensed it to as tight as possible but we can't do that now because we had vans shuttling people. There's just so many things.
Different world.
Different world.
Well, congratulations. That is very, very nice. Very nice. I touched on this before, but and I'm totally guilty of this. The producer takes the hit when you're a line producer. Everybody goes, "Oh, this producer wasn't ready. They didn't have this done. Right. They didn't have that done." They all get it. How do you handle that? How does I mean, I guess maybe you're going to take it. You're in that role, but what do people not know? What do people not know about what your role is and where you're at and how you're stuck in a lot of other people's decisions that may roll production back?
I mean, I think for me, I can't speak for Christian, but
I'll speak to this as soon as you're done.
Yeah. I think we are answer seekers. And we're problem solvers. So for me, I don't get hung up on getting blamed. I'm hung up on getting the solution. Mm-hmm. And as I think as much as you have value in what you do, and you want people to see and understand and appreciate your worth, at the end of the day, it's just trying to figure out how to get to the end goal. Because the worst thing that can happen is you don't deliver to the client, and then there's a $500,000 lawsuit. That's the problem. It's not being, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over budget. If you can't deliver the product on that shoot day, that's the major problem. So you're just trying to get to that solution, and all the blame and all the this and that and getting angry and stuff is just a bunch of noise that distracts you from actually achieving the goal. And so I think that's kind of how I've always. You have to have a thick skin, of course.
Yeah.
People are going to yell at you. People are going to be unhappy with your decisions. But you're as long as you know that you're like Christian and I. We want to make sure we take care of our crew. We don't want to work in inhumane hours. We want to make sure the food is good, and you've got everything you need to do. You've got all the tools you need to execute your job to the fullest of your ability. If we can provide that and ignore any complaints and unhappy feelings or whatever, just so we can get to the end goal, then I think we're good. And I think that's kind of the path that I follow to kind of not be hurt by upset crew or stuff like that.
Right. Yep. I think sometimes meeting new crew is almost like dating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somewhere, at some point, at some time, a producer absolutely treated you like shit. They lied to you. They did all kinds of things to you. They didn't pay you right. Something happened. But I'm not that producer. So it takes a moment when I work with new people, and sometimes I need to say that, like, I am not that person. I'm not going to do this to you. But why don't you pretend that I'm not gonna for this conversation? Yeah. That way we can get past the norms of, or strike that. It's not the norms of how we're perceived. Mm-hmm. And we can start over with fresh with I'm not that producer. I'm this producer. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is hard sometimes, though.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, I mean, we still have days. Lately, Christian's been my emotional support on most of my jobs because it's just like, what is going on? These are so hard.
And I've taken to saying directly to the person, these are so hard. So to give me your worst. Let's figure out your problem.
Yeah. No, and you know what? That analogy to dating or is starting dating. that is so dead on, because it's like at first everybody's, being overly polite. You pulling the chair out, you're doing, and then it comes out.
That shit.
Yeah. You know what I have found, and here's what I've done, and this is not any kind of thing I constructed. It happened over time, but I am real clear just in the beginning, about what we do. I mean, I never get down to the thing of saying, "Oh, we have to eat after 6 hours," because I think that's almost just
right.
You know what I mean? I know it's a big deal, and you have, if the exception has to be made, but I assume people know that going in. But I'm always very clear on who makes what, when they will expect to be paid, and what they do and what their skill sets are, not down to the person, but just, we do that, but we maybe don't do this, so you need to get somebody else that does that,
Well, you're setting expectations from the beginning, which I think is very important. When I get an email like that from a grip or a gaffer or an AC, when I get that email, I'm like, oh, fantastic. I know that they've been fucked over before, pardon me, but that's why I'm getting this email. And they don't know me, so they shouldn't trust me. So this is a little bit of trust by saying this is what we're expecting. The moment I get that type of email, I call them. I'm like, I know why I got this email.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk out what happened before, and why don't I tell you how I'm going to combat that and how we're going to work together, and it's right away. Having that conversation or the confrontation, whatever it is, that right in the beginning makes it not happen right when the shit's hitting the fan on the shoot.
Right. Yeah. And I think another empowering tool that I use is letting the person I'm talking to, letting the crew member I'm working with, that they can say no.
Yes.
I can't.
We want you to say no.
We want no is an answer, and I
no
tell
is
people
the answer. I want to hear it.
I want to hear it. Don't fib and say yes and be angry about it or whatever. If you can't execute what I need, let me know so I can figure out another plan.
Right. Well, I think that's very important.
I think that exactly, because if you say no to me to do something, then I'm like, great. So let's work on how we can do it.
Exactly. Again, solution. Yeah.
And I think too that is a little bit, there's a thing on my side of the fence, and it's the same with you guys on yours, but it's like, oh, you go out there, you give 150%, you do this, you don't let anybody down, you get every shot. Well, you know what? You've got to be realistic in those.
Especially now in COVID times, to be honest.
Yeah. And look, and we talked about this, and let me just touch on it real quick, is like budgets. Obviously, budgets have, I'll leave that for the last 5 minutes, but budgets have been decimated, budgets have been decimated. And sister, we talked about that every conversation starts out, well, the budget's a little low on this. And you said you don't even say that anymore. Yeah.
Because
and we all
honestly,
know.
That's what I want to know. I'm like, hey, listen, if I'm honest with you, this is how much I have for it. If you would like to do the job, please let me know. Or tell me how unrealistic this number is. Because again, when I'm hiring you, you are the expert in your field. I need to know that if I don't give you the manpower you need, then it's going to cost time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Are we in the ballpark? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, or one tool that I do have as well, I can go back and try to shift the creative ask. I know that doesn't happen very often, but we can say, I'm sorry, but creatively we can not do this within our day. And I know it's an ask, but we have to figure out a different way to provide this.
Right.
Because we cannot do it for the money we have.
Yeah. No, that's, one thing too, and because I'm usually fairly out front when I'm talking to somebody, not just new, but any of my clients, what's your budget? And most people will tell me, but I'm always surprised by the ones that don't tell me. You know what I mean? I think it's this thing. Believe me, I am not out to maximize your budget because you probably don't have enough to begin with. What I'm trying to figure out is how much I can cut off of each light that you want and still make it work for you.
The days of
And
having
make it
somewhat
work for yourself.
Yeah, the days of having a vendor tell you first how much it costs because it might be less than you have in your budget. That was the secret, producer trick. Those days are gone. Look, I got this. Can you make this work? Because that's what it is right now. Because of the evolution of the industry. Here's where we're at. This is the new norm.
With the risk of going overtime by a half hour. What is it? Now we've grown up in a world, right? And I think we've seen that world change. Mm-hmm. What does the producer of tomorrow have to look forward to? What can the producer of tomorrow expect? I mean, they're obviously going to be more material because there is more. I mean, there's more places to put material than we've ever had in our life. Mm-hmm. There just isn't the budget to go along with it. Have either of you thought of anything like that?
Yes, if I may, Lawrence. I'm just going to jump right in and say especially now with crew size shrinking a bit and the need to stretch the dollar, I find myself being hired because I'm a producer who can also AD, who can also figure out solutions. I think that the producers who only produce and, that's their only job that they do are going to find themselves not being hired anymore. I feel like you have to know more and do more on the jobs, which is not a bonus. Believe me. Mm-hmm. I mean, the last thing I'm trying to advocate for is more work. But I think that you need to have an understanding of every department that, what they're going through deeper than the producers I used to work for who didn't still understand what a dolly grip did.
Yeah.
I mean, you as a producer, you have to know intimately what the DIT does and how long it's going to take him to download each file so you can figure his overtime. And I say he, I mean them. Yeah. You have to know each department.
Yep.
Intimately.
Yep. No, I agreed. Lawrence, anything to add to that?
No, she's exactly right, and you want to do the best you can by bringing the best people to the table, but sometimes that's not always possible, and it's not. I heard some brand say this that their budget for commercials, they were able to produce 2 commercials a year way back when, right in the 90s, and they had X amount of budget to spend on those 2 national broadcast commercials. This brand now makes 50 pieces of content a month. Yeah. And they have the same budget. Yeah. So looking at it from the brand perspective, it's not that they're trying to, rip us off or make stuff. No. Yeah, they're trying to make stuff for less, but it's not a nefarious thing. It's the sign of the times. In order to be a relevant brand, you have to constantly be generating content. That's so there's gonna be room for producers who can shoot, who can edit, who can do all these kind of things to create that lower end content, and then the producers and craftsmen like us on our level are going to have to eke out the national commercials for whatever is left. So there's a room for a lot of different types of producers out there these days.
Yeah.
Well, let me jump.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I think viewership expectation has drastically reduced, though. I mean, no longer are people wowed by the amazing visuals. Now a guy on a skateboard with his cranberry juice gets gets the love. So
exactly. But you're completely right, because I saw marketing for millennials. They don't trust. So say you're doing a food commercial. You remember 2 shots a day? I used to do food commercials in New York. Where 2 or 3. You do the same shot 43 times. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a piece of steak being cut. And now millennials and Gen Z do not trust airbrushed or overly pretty things. So things look more real. They don't cost as much. You don't need the high-end food stylist. You need somebody who makes food look good. It's a shame, don't get me wrong. But to your point, Tony, the big wow Super Bowl commercial, those are few and far between now. When August through October was when you were hoping somebody would call you to do a Super Bowl commercial. Yeah. Now they're happening in late January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I call that is, and this is not a derogatory term either, is disposable media, because everybody needs that media out there every day, touching someone and making it happen. But that money's got to come from somewhere, and you don't need that level of emotional response to it.
People are also getting from social media. It's a very targeted audience. So those 50 pieces of media are actually for a much smaller audience each.
Yes.
Yeah.
We used to make ads that 1/3 of the television watching nation would look at every night between 7 and 9 p.m. That's not what's happening anymore. You're making an ad to target to exactly maybe 85,000 people that are probably about to buy something that you're selling. So it's a new wheelhouse that we're working on.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have definitely made 2 new friends here today. I can tell you that, So, and you all both have an open invitation to come back anytime and discuss. And I may do another round, like a longer series, not just an Applebox, but have you guys on it as well, that we can all talk about industry issues. But
absolutely.
First of all, tell me how people get a hold of you, and tell me about your podcast, and just pitch.
Yeah, well, we have a podcast called Producers Happy Hour, and our intention behind it is much like what you're doing here, Burnie, is to create a community and to share information and share knowledge, especially with the new generation of producers that are coming up, and also to be able to talk to every single person that's on a film set and find out how they can best be supported by a producer to do their best work, because that just makes our job easier. So we started a podcast just before the pandemic started. We had 5 episodes in the can. We put out 1 episode, and then everything shut down, and we decided to go daily. For I think 3 months, we were a daily podcast, just talking to anybody to figure out what was happening in the industry. And then now we're back to like a weekly schedule, and we're just interviewing all kinds of people about how their jobs have shifted in this pandemic. So we're about to take our hiatus for the year. So we'll be back in January, February of next year. But producershappyhour.com is where you can find that. Which is why we're both, Producers Happy Hour. What's more common than 2 producers drinking? Christian has her cocktail. I've got my IPA. So this is a Producers Happy Hour.
Well, listen, during the COVID, during the beginning, it was like 2:00 my time. I'm like, great, let's just start drinking.
Yeah.
Because it was a very emotional time,
It was. Yeah, we got emotional on several episodes. But for me, you can find the rest of my work at lawrencetlouis.com. And we're in my voiceover studio, so you can see my microphone here, voiceoflawrence.com for all my voiceover work.
Excellent.
And I'm at sisterchristianproduces.com.
Okay.
And we'll put those.
All right.
We'll put the links to those pages, all those pages in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you joining us today, and
this was fun.
Such great information. No, I had a really good time. I had a great time in the pre-interview too. I mean, it was.
We'd like to. May I say we'd like to come back soon and just discuss budgets.
Listen.
Budgets. The whole thing, and we can dispel any myths that anybody may have about what happens during the process, why you're being told what you're told, all of those things.
You know what?
We love it.
I would really love that. In fact, Tony, just one thing, I may expand that, do something like we did with the COVID master class, if you will, or symposium, where we talked about COVID and everything coming back. I might do it just what's 21 going to be like? What is 2021 going to be like? And because you guys, you got your finger on the pulse of it. Definitely we'll do that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Burnie. Yeah.
All right. My pleasure. My pleasure, guys. All right. And we'll see everybody next Friday, 2:00.